We have 11 points we hit, they turn off the whole electricity. But there could be a problem for civilians. The cities would be dark, people gonna have to run, do something. And however it would sound stupid, our leadership maybe would make less problems for civilians. Though it would be Americans, probably first night they would do it. They would just take it out, just like it happened in Yugoslavia. Concerning bridges, unfortunately, Soviet Union, they made them so strong. They could have 250 to 500 kilos of bombs. We can't even break them with the rockets. It has to, these bombs has to fly from sky. You can't hit it with a rocket. The bomb has to fly from the sky. It's a few tons you have to throw, drop down. So whatever the railroad and bridges, these are very powerful things, and you can fix them quickly. As an example, Antonov's bridge from Kherson had 38 hits, Hammers hits. It had some holes that you can put some metal sheet and drive over it. In the end, it was blown up by the military engineers putting a few tons of bombs. Concerning the front line, indeed, everybody evaluates whether you moving forward or going back as a success line. But military theory says that there's 3 centers of standing against, and the ones that you break on, you win the war. That's army, capital, and allies. Front line is not the one that mentioned. There's no movement. Everything is stable there. Just like in World War II, the army of Germany was capitulated because they didn't have enough strength. But the front line was there. So each day Ukrainian soldiers are dying, and it cannot be endless. They won't have enough people. As an example, I remember a conversation with one of the Special Forces commander. I do humanitarian supply, and he asked the fire extinguishers, a lot of them. He says Ukrainian hits, everything burns up, flames up, and you have to use the extinguisher. And a lot of drones are flying from Ukrainian side. Where he said, you don't understand what the soldiers feel there when 3 tons of bombs are flying there. We're afraid here. We don't understand. And they're still standing there. They're still fighting. They're not running away. They don't surrender. As I said, it's a mirror war. We're not as difficult situation as they are. We don't have as many casualties as they have. Nobody knows till the end. You cannot find the bodies after such big hits. They just disappear.
Yeah, and would you agree with me that there has been a decided shift in, because I believe the General Staff is following a plan that was drawn up maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, once the war, in the wake of the counteroffensive, and that they are methodically following that plan. They're not rigid. I mean, they're still thinking, gathering new intelligence, and they're not just going to follow a plan because it's written down. They are flexible. But the plan that they put together seems to have been working effectively in demilitarizing not just the Ukrainian army, but, and I think this may have surprised the Russian military in general. They didn't realize how quickly they would weaken NATO, because all of a sudden, I think there may have been the assumption that NATO had strategic depth. And now what we've seen is that with the use of artillery, the West, all of it, The United States and Europe combined can't match what Russia produces.
Они не могут даже рядом встать с тем,
We saw the same with all the different, Wunderwaffen, all the wonder weapons,
вот все вот эти вот чудесные оружия,
the HIMARS, the ATACMS, the Storm Shadows, the F-16.
F-16 и все остальное оружие.
And right now
Сейчас
you're seeing the discussion about the possible use of tomahawks.
вот это использование
And
томагавков.
so many of the people in the West talking about it don't understand
Даже не понимают.
that it's a pinpoint
Это
weapon.
просто такое
It's
вот
not an area weapon.
оружие иголки, такое
It's like a really expensive drone
это просто очень дорогое.
with may have a 300 kilogram warhead. That's tops.
А в головке будет, ну и все.
The one that was designed to carry a nuclear device
Тот, который был создан для
is
того, чтобы
not in
нести
place
заряд
right now.
ядерной силы.
Да.
And I've got a friend, Andrei Martyanov,
У него есть друг
who
Андрей
is
Мартьянов.
he left shortly after the Soviet Union collapsed, but he was a naval officer,
Распада СССР. Он
and
был военным
he's
офицером,
written 5 books.
написал 5 книг.
The first one was called Losing Military Supremacy, and it was explaining the disadvantage that the West had vis-a-vis Russia.
Военного превосходства.
And he did that 8 years ago. Brilliant
Лет
book.
назад он хорошую книгу.
But he was explaining the other day that he selected one refinery
Он выбрал одну
and noted it would take 100 Tomahawk missiles
и
to destroy that one refinery here in Russia.
томагавков, чтобы
The
уничтожить.
United States doesn't have 100 Tomahawk missiles to give.
США нет сотни.
So again, it's one of these
Это вот один из таких
gestures, symbolic gestures, without any real tactical or strategic significance.
тактики и стратегии.
Would you agree with that?
Согласны вы с этим?
Yes. Здесь еще
And
разница в системах.
there's a difference in systems.
В Америке,
In
во всем
America
НАТО,
and all over NATO,
военные заводы все частные,
military plants are all private,
а у нас в основном государственные.
and we have state plants.
И как государственные заводы мы
And as a
имеем
state plant,
законсервированные мощности.
We have certain powers that we
На период
conserve.
войны мы можем резко
For the period of war,
выпустить снаряды.
we can make a great supply.
Поэтому мы выпускаем более 3 миллионов снарядов в год.
That's why we supply 3 million bullets per year, and it
Частные
increases.
компании не будут держать
Private
эти
companies
мощности,
not
это
gonna
невыгодно.
have all that because it takes a lot more money.
Когда
And when
снаряд 155 миллиметров НАТО стоит
$155 bullet costs at $300.
$8 000.
Right now, it's over
Частным
$8,000.
компаниям проще поднять цену.
Private companies better to raise the price. It's a market.
В России мы
Russia,
можем выпускать оружие миллионами.
We can issue weapons. We can manufacture weapons
Я
by
вспоминаю,
millions.
когда я спрашивал наших
When I was
оружейников,
asking
почему мы используем
how come
стальные
we
гильзы для
use
пуль, ну, для патронов,
steel pockets for the patrons for the
а не,
bullets,
значит, бронзовые, как
and not
у
out of
европейцев,
bronze like
американцев.
Europeans and Americans?
Говорит, потому что мы в день можем делать таких миллионов.
Because we can do millions per day
И
like
мы
that,
не испытываем сейчас проблем.
and we don't have pressure.
Оказалось, что система
I
ПВО
come
у
to
нас на
find out the
поколение
air system. We have a generation over the
мы
protection
можем
air system,
выпускать очень много ракет.
and we can have a lot of rockets out there.
А в Америке, например,
And
они
in
выпустили
US,
Patriot,
they did the Patriot, they
а
manufactured
всем
Patriot,
остальным партнерам запретили создавать
and the
системы
rest
такого
of the
уровня.
partners they forbid to create the
все
system on the
покупали у
same level, so everybody would buy from Americans.
И на весь мир
And the
они
whole world,
выпускают всего лишь 600
they
ракет
issue
в
only
год.
600 rockets per year.
В год.
Per year.
А мы выпускаем, я уже говорил,
And
10
I already said
тысяч
we make 10,000
дронов,
bombs, drones
в месяц.
per month.
Right. Well, remember on those Patriots,
Ну вот помните по тем
if there is for example, if they're trying to take out a Iran drone
они хотели убрать
or even an Iskander Control,
Искандер,
they're going to fire a minimum of 2,
минимум 2 там выходит,
more often 4
скорее всего 4
missiles just to take out the one incoming.
того, чтобы
And as you pointed out, one day Russia's firing 800,
И если вдруг
missiles and
Россия
drones,
выпустит 800 дронов,
another day
в следующий
600.
день 600,
Well, if they fire, let's just say they fire 2
допустим, 2 они выпустят,
for 600.
2 по 600.
Not that they can, but if they
Не то,
could,
чтобы они будут, но вот
that would use up 2 years of production right
это
there
2 года
in
производства
one
идет
day.
за один день.
That's why I said that they haven't thought this through
Я
at
просто
all.
сказал, вы не продумали, вообще не думали о том, что вы говорите.
Я был на заводе, который выпускает герани,
I was at the manufacturing plant that issues Geranis,
и у меня возникло ощущение,
and
как
I had a
в фильме,
feeling that just like
«Звездные войны»,
in the movies of the Star Wars by
когда
Lucas,
база повстанцев
when the base of
где-то
the
под землей уходит
somewhere
вдаль,
under the
и там
ground they
стоят
go further
самолеты,
and they have
идут
planes
выезды,
and
сварки.
some kind of
Это
welding
такие
goes
же
on.
масштабы.
That's the same scale.
Это огромные мощности.
Huge power,
И когда я
huge
это увидел,
capacities.
сам
When
по
I
себе
saw
звездной
that,
герань, он большой.
it's huge.
Он сделан очень технологично,
But
из
it makes
карбона, как
technologically from carbon like a bolide from Formula One,
racing car.
a racing car.
И их много.
And
И
it's
я
a lot of
спросил,
them.
зачем мы так много
And I've asked,
делаем?
how come we produce so many?
Говорит, мы делаем на будущую войну.
They sued for we do it for a future war.
Не все, что мы выпускаем,
Not
идет на фронт.
everything that
Часть
goes to the front line, some goes in a warehouse.
И мы перешли на новое поколение.
And we went into the new generation when drones are flying with as a bird crowd with a AI in it,
Управляют друг другом и могут
and they
уничтожать
manage
поезда,
each
которые
other,
идут в движении.
and they can take out the trains that are on
Есть
movement.
видео в интернете.
And we have a video on the
Ночью с
internet
тепловизором.
on at night time with the special
Головной
equipment, night
дрон
vision.
определяет состав.
The head of the drones divides the other drones, and they start taking out the train, the
Это
carton by
технология,
carton.
которая пока, может
It's a
быть, даже нет у
technology, could be,
американцев.
even Americans don't have that.
Потому что у них есть самонаводящиеся
Because they have
ракеты
self-aiming
только по кораблям.
rockets only on boats.
Right. Well, in fact, without divulging military secrets, the average the S3 version of the Patriot missile, each one costs $7 million.
PAC-3 MSC.
Yeah,
MSI.
yeah. My guess is that let's say the Garan drone
Вот эти вот дроны
does not cost $1 million.
миллионы не стоят.
It costs much less than $1 million. So think of that.
Давайте вот просто
They're firing $14 million worth of missiles to take a missile out that, maybe a couple of $100,000 or $100,000. And economically unsustainable.
Просто экономически это не выдержит.
Поэтому Зеленский предложил Трампу
This is
на
why
последней встрече
Zelensky offered at the last meeting with Trump that they're ready to make the underground plants to put together rockets.
И у нас, и в Америке ракеты собираются вручную.
Both at our place and in America, rockets are done by
Самое сложное это
manual
блок
force.
управления.
The block of management, the control block is the most difficult thing. Because you got a lot of mechanics there,
Гироскопы, различные системы
different
наведения,
connections,
всё это
all
собирается
that
вручную,
is done by
достаточно
hand.
медленно.
Quite slow.
Я видел, как это делают
I
в
have
России,
seen how they do it in
тоже
Russia
вручную женщины
by
сидят,
hand,
собирают.
women putting
И
it
это
together.
очень сложно резко нарастить.
And it's hard to grow the scale,
Но я не
the
думаю,
sizes,
что
but I don't think that
американцы готовы передать эту технологию для сборки.
Americans are ready to give that technology to
Одна
Ukrainians.
европейская компания
One
готова
European
собирать
company is ready to
ракеты для
put together the
Patriot, 50
rockets,
штук в год.
only 50 pieces per year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's,
Это недостаточно.
It's not enough.
yeah, it is. There is the United States, or if
США,
we would go back to World War II.
если мы вот вернемся во Вторую мировую,
In World War II,
во Второй мировой
the United States was able to build as many Sherman tanks
смогли построить как
as
большое
Russia could
количество
build
Sherman
T-34s.
как Россия Т-34.
And, so they had comparable industrial
То есть у
capabilities.
них была такая хорошая индустриальная возможность.
But what made the then Soviet Union's effort so remarkable
И что вот было такой большим достижением Советского Союза?
in the face of Operation Barbarossa, they had to dismantle factories and move them en masse
То есть,
to the other
Барбаросса,
side of the
несмотря, им
Urals.
нужно было разобрать заводы, перенести их и заново производить эти танки.
A phenomenal accomplishment.
Феноменальное достижение.
But today,
А сегодня
Russia still has that industrial
у
base.
России есть такая индустриальная база,
The United States does not.
а в США нет.
It's lost it.
Они потеряли.
It's like when I'm an old man now,
Я
but
вообще,
50 years ago,
50 лет назад
my father was a steel worker,
отец, он работал со
and we had a steel plant, and I lived in the Kansas City area.
в Канзасе.
That plant is gone. not there.
Этого завода больше нет.
Other my
Другие
schoolmates,
мои школьные
we were all
товарищи,
middle class. All fathers worked in factories. We're building something. We're working with oil refineries, building farm equipment.
делали сельскохозоборудование.
All of that is gone.
Этого ничего нет.
Да.
And so this is why
Это вот
the
поэтому
failure in the West to understand
Запад этого не
the scale
понимает,
of industrial capability required to wage modern war.
который требуется для ведения войны. Они не
Мы
понимают.
в усилении вашего тезиса,
To make stronger your thesis,
когда мы хотим оценить экономический
When
потенциал страны,
we want to evaluate the economical potential of the country. We look at their trading economical balance.
положительно он или отрицательно.
Either it is positive or negative.
Потому что если он отрицательный,
Because if it is negative,
ты завозишь товаров больше, чем ты
you
производишь.
bring more products than you
Значит, эту
produce,
разницу
which means
ты
that
берешь
difference
кредиты
you
или
take
у
credits
населения, или на внешнем
from
конкуренте.
people or from the outer market.
Например,
For
у
example,
Китая
China
положительное
has a
сальдо
positive
в
saldo
год
per year,
около
But
250-300 миллиардов долларов.
250 to 300 billion dollars.
У России
Russia,
чуть
it's like
меньше.
somewhat not less, 200.
Америка
America,
последние
last
15 лет
15 years,
имеет отрицательное
has
сальдо
negative balance,
уже в 1,5 триллиона долларов.
$1.5 trillion.
То есть американцы
Which
печатают
means
деньги
America prints the
и
money
скупают товары со всего мира.
and buys the product from all over the world.
Поэтому все фабрики, о
This
которых
is
вы
why
говорили,
all the
были
manufacturing
закрыты.
plants
Зачем
that you're
делать
speaking
самим, мы это
about,
получим
they close.
бесплатно?
Why? We're going to get it free.
Но они слабые. Если
But they're
мир
weak.
откажется от доллара,
If the world will refuse from the dollar,
они останутся ни с чем.
they will be left with
У нас и
nothing.
у Китая будут
Us in
производства,
China will have production, will get mining, the
а у
whole
Америки
system.
будут проблемы.
In America, we'll have problems.
Они сейчас пытаются
Now,
возвращать
they're
предприятия.
bringing back the manufacturing.
Но это тоже не
But
так легко
it's
сделать,
not
когда
takes
рабочие были
overnight
утеряны.
when the workers were lost.
Для нас это было удивительно,
For us, it was a
когда
surprising thing when
Америка решила восполнить запасы
America was trying to do the
ракет «Стингер».
rocket Stingers warehouse
Они
storage.
сказали, нам нужно
They
7
said
лет,
we need 7 years
потому что мы брали ветеранов с
because we brought veterans from production
veterans, то для производства,
for the production
потому что молодежь не знает,
because
не
young people don't know how to do it.
умеет. Right.
Все правильно.
И сейчас идет большая
And now
глобальная гонка,
we have a global racing,
и,
global
возможно,
competition.
надеюсь, что наш президент убедит
Hopefully
Трампа,
that our president will assure Trump that what takes place now in this conflict, it's a very big numbers, huge numbers, drones, tanks, people from many European countries. It's somewhere there. They don't understand till the end how serious that is.
когда, например, какая-нибудь
When some kind of
прибалтийская страна грозит
Baltic
воевать
country
с нами,
says that they will fight with
а у
us,
нее
and they have
солдат меньше, чем на одну
soldiers
бригаду.
less than one brigade,
И они считают по
and they
пальцам
think
одной
that
руки
they can
квадроциклы, которые
hand
летают.
quadricycles on one hand fingers.
Well, you also have the Chinese advances with robots that are robot factories. And with the cooperation now, because we're looking at a broad-based cooperation, economic, political, military between China and Russia. And
Секретная.
yeah, that one of the complaints, one of the false analysis in the West is that Russia's running out of men. And it doesn't have enough men to work in the factories. Well, that Russia has the nice problem. It has low unemployment. Anybody that wants a job can get a job. But also with what China's doing, willing to share that technology with Russia, and in turn Russia's shared technology with China, that level of cooperation is going to completely overwhelm the West in its ability to compete.
Да, например, технологии гиперзвуковых ракет.
For example, hypersound technology.
Она есть у нас,
We have it.
у Китая.
China has it.
4
4?
Kinshasa,
Циркон.
Циркон, Орешник.
Ну, это стратегически
That's
уже, да.
strategic already, but
И
yes.
циркон будет скоро на
And
на
Circon would be
земле.
on the land.
И это работает.
And that works.
Да, действительно,
Yes, indeed.
гиперзвуковые технологии, которые не
Hypersonic
могут остановиться на
technologies
Западе,
cannot be stopped in the
могут
West.
утопить авианосные
They can
группы
put down all Navy that carry the air.
Yeah, yeah.
и остановить их нельзя.
You can't stop them, they're
И
unstoppable.
действительно, наше
And indeed, our
взаимодействие с Китаем,
partnership with China,
мы это закрыли, чтобы это
we
не
have
было
closed it.
транзакций
So
долларов,
the transactions of dollars are
а
not there,
также
and also
пересечение границ,
crossing the borders.
чтобы противник из
So the
Запада не понимал,
opponent
где
as a West would not understand where's what.
В качестве иллюстрации.
Just an illustration.
Америка великая страна.
America's a
Я много
great
раз там был,
country.
мне очень нравится.
I have been there, I like that
Но
country.
когда мы смотрим
But
на
when we
динамично
look
развивающиеся
at the
азиатские
dynamic
страны, скоростные
Asian
поезда,
countries developing
небоскребы, мы задаемся
and
вопросом,
skyscrapers,
а сколько километров
we ask the
скоростных
question,
железных дорог в США?
how many railroads on a high-speed trains do they have?
Ноль.
None.
Когда мы видим, что каждый день
When
в
every
Америке
day
3 железнодорожных
America
аварии,
has 3 railroad collisions,
и я спрашиваю специалистов,
and I ask the
почему так
specialists,
часто у них
why so
происходит?
often? Why does it take place so
Они
often?
используют технологии 19
They
века,
use the
спалные из дерева.
technologies of the 19th century as the railroads from the wood,
И до сих пор деревянные их не меняют.
and they don't change them.
У нас на территории России нет ни
In
одного
Russia, we don't have those technologies where you have a wooden rails, because that means the rails are going to be flexible. They're going to
Почему
move.
Америка не тратит
Why
деньги на
America
это,
does
на
not
свои
spend money
дороги,
on that, on the
мосты,
railroads, on bridges,
уровень жизни,
level of
отправляет
life,
их всё время на экспорт.
by send it for
Уровень
export?
жизни американцев
The
снижается.
level of life of Americans
Oh, but-
decreases.
Believe me, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 40 years, and then I would travel on what was called Amtrak to New York City.
В Нью-Йорк.
And, you know, again, a 4-hour trip,
4 часа,
that was, you know, you're going 240 miles.
240 миль,
So, yeah, you're basically traveling at an average speed of 60 miles per hour. So, 100 miles, 100 kilometers per hour,
то есть 100 километров в час.
which is nothing.
Но это вообще ничто.
And you are correct with, particularly
По поводу
with the failure to build hypersonic
того,
missiles.
что нет вот этих
And then-
суперзвуковых ракет.
To train, well,
Но чтобы
I would presume that you have studied now, made a case study out of what the United States failed to do in the Red Sea with the Houthis.
вы сделали определенные свои выводы.
Because we declared victory and went home
Но мы
because we
долго
could not,
провозгласили победу,
we couldn't
другого не
defeat the
могли.
Houthis.
Мы вот даже своих
And yet-
собственных не могли победить.
Trump talks about taking on Russia.
А Трамп говорит о том, что мы победим Россию. Это
I'm guessing here.
я так просто тут
I think Russia has a little more military
Я
power
думаю,
than the
что,
Houthis.
скорее всего, у русских гораздо больше, чем у наших собственных. Кто там наши границы пытается завоевать.
Я надеюсь, что мы никогда
I
не
hope that
дойдем
we'll
до
never get to the
реального
point
военного
of the real
противостояния,
military conflict,
потому что это может перерасти в стратегические ядерные
because it can go into the strategic nuclear bombs.
Вот. Но американский военно-промышленный комплекс,
American war military-industrial
5
complex,
крупных компаний
5 huge companies,
постоянно толкает Белый
constantly
дом
pressure White
на
House
продажу новых
for sales of a new packages to Europe, where the future passing over to Ukraine, because Trump pushed now 5% from the turnover of the budget,
И очень хотят, чтобы это были американцы.
and they want it to be American military.
И это речь идет о больших деньгах.
And we speak about big money here.
Мы понимаем, что за
We
этими
understand
компаниями
that
стоят
behind
три
these
крупных
companies
транснациональных
there's
фонда:
3
BlackRock,
huge BlackRock national funds, Vanguard
State Street,
and State Street,
и они не воспринимают как Америка
and
или
they
Европа.
don't
Для них
understand
это просто
America,
большой
Europe
рынок,
is just big market of money.
но для нас это, конечно, риски.
But for us, it's a huge risk.
Я хотел задать вопрос.
I wanted to ask a question.
Мы Трампу предложили
We have offered to Trump
продлить договор
to
о
prolong
стратегических
about the
наступательных вооружениях
strategic attacking that contract we're
на
speaking
1
about
год для
for one
согласования
more
нового
year
контракта.
to agree a new contract.
А Трамп, выступая на трибуне ООН,
And Trump is speaking at the UN Tribune,
предложил миру, не только нам,
and he offered to the whole world
новый договор
New
о
contract
запрете
about forbidding
биологического оружия.
biological weapon.
Хотя мы знаем, что у
Though we
американцев
know
самая
that
крупная
Americans
военная
have
программа
the
по всему
most
миру.
military program on that
И на
around the
Украине в
world.
том числе. Почему Трамп решил это остановить?
Why
Если
did
они
Trump want
лидеры
to
по
stop it?
разработке
If they're
лекарств,
leaders
оружия, всего, и
in the
изучения
weapons and the development and the studying of that, why did he offer that?
You know, so much of America's defense policy
Вообще вся политика
is driven by financial considerations, and by that I mean
состоит от финансовых интересов.
how to enrich
Как
those corporations and their
обогатить эти
shareholders.
корпорации,
So
генералов,
the decisions about doing
поэтому решение по поводу определенных
is not based upon
вооружений,
strategy
это даже не стратегическое
or
решение,
even what works best tactically.
чего там говорить о тактике.
So you then it's not just Trump's fault, because it also
Просто вина Трампа.
goes back to George W.
Почему?
Bush
Сказал, мы возвращаемся к
when he
Джорджу
walked away from the anti-ballistic missile treaty
Он,
agreement.
отошел от антиракетного соглашения.
Then Donald Trump abrogated the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Agreement
Дональд Трамп начал говорить о вооружении, ядерном вооружении.
and basically have been signaling
И подавал
that they'll
сигналы,
let New START die.
что как бы новый старт уже умер. Еще
So,
не начали, а он уже умер.
But President Putin's offer to
Но
extend it
президент Путин
was not rejected by
он,
Trump, but
не отказал Трампу.
there really is not anybody
Но если кто-то,
in government with,
правительстве,
let's call it memory,
давайте
of arms control.
в памяти, вот, где мы действительно контролировали
You know,
оружие.
the people like Scott Ritter, who were involved on it
Те люди, которые
20
были
years
вооружены
ago,
20 лет, как Скотт Риттер,
have
он
not
знает
been
об этом всем.
replaced. You don't have a new generation of
Нет
experts.
нового поколения таких экспертов, как он.
So, you know, again, America is not guided by a strategic
И
vision.
Америка сейчас, у нее нет
And that's the
стратегического
problem.
видения. Вот в чем проблема.
Ну, хотелось бы верить, что
We would love to believe that
такие стратегии там
such strategies
появятся, но мы
would be there,
понимаем,
but we
что
understand that
фонды,
the
например,
funds
как Rand Corporation,
like Rand Corporation,
где самые большие бюджеты,
where they have the biggest budgets,
всех экспертов перетаскивают к себе,
all the experts they bring to
и
themselves,
готовят для Белого дома
and
доклады,
they're getting ready for reports for the White House that are profitable to all these big financial
вводят в
giants.
заблуждение Белый дом.
They bring in the White House into confusion.
Потому что мы помним, что доклад Rand
We remember the
Corporation
report of that
за 2 месяца
corporation
до
and 2
начала
months before the beginning
конфликта
of the
на
conflict
Украине
at Ukraine
говорил о том, что для
spoke that
Америки, чтобы поднять
for
ее экономику, есть только
America
один
to
вариант.
lift up its economy, there's only one way:
Это спровоцировать русских на
to provoke
конфликт на
Russians
Украине,
for conflict onto Ukraine,
отрезать дешевую энергетику от русских, которая идет в Европу.
cut off the cheap energy that goes from Russia to
Не
Europe.
знаем, будет взорван Северный поток.
We know that north ones were blown up.
Ограничить дешевую электроэнергию со стороны Франции,
To cut cheap electricity from France,
и она выросла на 300%.
and it went up 300%.
И после этого
And
немецкая
after that,
экономика начнет
German
коллапсировать
economy starts
и
collapsing
начнет переезжать в США.
and starts moving to United
И это
States.
происходит
And that
сейчас.
happened today.
Но они не написали, как выйти из этого.
But they didn't write down in their report how have a solution to
Потом в
it.
23 году они
Then in
пришли
23 they
с
came
выводом, что надо
with a
делать.
conclusion what needs to be done.
И они сказали, что остановить этот
And they
конфликт можно
said that
только в
you can
рамках
stop this conflict
мирного
only in the
договора,
framework, not on a peace treaty, but a political
когда
regulation,
просто остановятся боевые действия.
when you will stop military action.
Но слабым звеном,
But the weaker
кто будет
chain
этому сопротивляться
who would be
и
against
мешать,
it and be really
являться
an
Зеленским.
obstacle would be Zelensky manipulation.
потому что образ будущего
Because
лет
the
через 10
image of the future in 10 years,
у Украины и США не совпадает.
Ukraine and United States, they don't have the same.
У Украины это вечная война,
Ukraine, it's a constant war.
а у США это
In United
мировое
States,
господство.
it's
И
been
это кооперация
empire,
с Россией должна
and that has to be in cooperation with Russia.
И они предложили, что
And
нужно
they
купить
offered
Зеленского,
that you have to purchase or buy
предложить
Zelensky,
ему денег на
offer him
восстановление
money
Украины потом
to
больше,
restore
с которых
in
он
Ukraine
заработает,
more
чем
than
он
he would make
зарабатывает
money
сейчас.
than he's making now.
Но, судя по всему, ему пока это предложение еще не сделано.
Looks like they didn't make that offer to him.
Непонятно, кто будет восстанавливать Украину,
It's
где
not
брать деньги.
clear
у
who's
европейцев
gonna
уже
restore
нет.
Ukraine because money, Europeans, they don't have it.
Потому что Трамп зарезервировал 600
Because
миллиардов.
Trump reserved $600 billion.
то инвестирование в Америку,
That was investment to America
в технологии искусственного интеллекта.
in the technologies for AI.
Yeah, what we're looking at is the U.S. military budget is China. It is twice that of Russia and China's military defense budget combined. And yet,
Уже более триллиона.
yeah, I mean, there is such a disparity in force, whether we're talking the hypersonic missiles or drones capabilities. I guess I'm a little surprised that both Russia and China are continuing programs to build fifth and sixth generation fighters, because they're now becoming, I think those systems are becoming obsolete because of drone and missile technology. Just in the same way that there was a time in the Army when they had saddles for horses. But at the advent of the machine gun, a horse was no longer made a lot of sense. And I think that's what, and the tank as well. So we've got these legacy systems that are, very costly, particularly in the West, that need to, be retired. And I think both the Chinese and the Russian military have more flexibility on that front to say, okay, this no longer makes sense. Good job. We're done.
Мне очень нравится смотреть,
I like to watch how Trump
давит на военные
pressures
технологии.
the military technologies, counting in if he likes it, the outward look or not.
Да, мы знаем, что он
Yes, we
украшает
know
золотом
he
камин в
puts
овальном кабинете.
gold in the Oval Office.
Это его вкус.
Whatever, that's his taste and
Когда он
preferences.
повесил себе значок самолета,
But when he
ему
put
задали
the
вопрос,
airplane
почему это
pin
самолеты в
on,
22, что это значит?
what is that F-22
Он
plane?
говорит, ничего, мне
He says,
подарили
doesn't
разные
matter.
значки, я выбрал самый красивый.
They just gave me different planes, they different pins. I took the best one I
Когда он
liked.
сказал, что новые
But when
американские эсминцы,
The new Zuvalt Navy boats, they're not pretty, though they were made the stealth technology, they are different. And we need to get back to the big boats of linkers that shouldn't be built now. They're drones, they do completely different technologies. They go in, go out. And by these comments, he takes the military-industrial complex away, aside. We need completely different things. We need speed. That's hypersound systems. That's the future. As an example, if we will work out hypersound Zircon rockets, make it for the soil complex, and make it against Navy, then the batteries of those systems, for example, in Venezuela, they will stop every beginning of the operation. All the boats will be sunk. With a lot of people, a lot of casualties, it won't be possible probably impossible to stop those systems. China right now invests big money into the technologies of the future. We already have laser Chinese conflicts fighting. They're taking out drones and very effectively. Just bring the fuel. Don't need rockets, don't need anything else. Rain, snow, doesn't matter. They do what they want to do. And that's the first generation. And they're making another one. At the parade, they have shown that. So they don't invest as much money to the rockets, they go to another generation. Because rockets are technology-wise, but they also need changes. So we have something to stand against with, and we see that the flexibility that we have, it goes into the Europeans. But step by step, they're getting ready for the 30s to fight with us on the ground. We don't understand why.
Но, возможно, это
But possibly it's taken away the military-industrial complex to another side.
такая гонка вооружений.
Such a competition
Yeah,
for
it's very much it's a political process,
политический процесс,
not a military
не
process.
военный процесс.
So what we've witnessed during the special military
То,
operation
что мы видим с СВО,
is once recognized that the Ukrainians had developed some electronic warfare capability
когда мы
that
узнаем,
was
что
taking out drones,
украинцы пришли к какой-то новой технологии, которая
commanders on the front line said, hey,
дроны,
we need to have some, the fiber optic
передовые, они говорят,
capability
нам нужно
to counter
что-то
this.
волокно, чтобы противостоять или еще что-то.
Quickly
И быстро
provided.
это создается, это поставляется.
Whereas in the United States, if they were going to try to do that,
Если они попытаются так сделать,
well, they'd first have to put it out for bid,
сначала им нужно сделать
but
конкурс, потом
in putting it out for bid, they would hire
нанять
a defense lobbyist,
лоббистов,
and the ones that had paid the most money and were paying the most money to members of Congress
чтобы они платили членам
would likely
Конгресса,
get the contract,
чтобы они подписали
and it
контракт.
wouldn't, it might take a year or two for that even to get delivered.
А технологии уже
And
поменялись.
the
Whereas here,
technologies
this
have already changed.
it happened within weeks,
А сейчас за неделю это здесь
within
всё
weeks.
происходит. Неделю на это.
And that's not just that's just one example.
Не только вот один единственный.
So that's the difference.
Вот в этом и есть разница.
The U.S. defense capability.
Защита США и
or
возможности
we-
обороны США.
So yeah, they've changed the name. It's now the War Department.
Это не военная,
They're not very good at that either.
то есть военный департамент. Ну и в этом у нас тоже не очень хорошо все получается.
Ларри, мы благодарим.
Larry, we just want to thank you.
Уже будем завершать.
We're going to finish the
Я в
podcast.
конце хотел
But
задать
in the
один
end, I
вопрос.
wanted to ask us a
Прошу
question.
короткий ответ.
Just a short
Как
answer.
вы думаете, Трамп в
What do you
рамках
think?
Министерства войны
Trump in a Ministry of War
нападет на
Department,
Венесуэлу или нет?
would he hit Venezuela or not?
Да.
Спасибо большое
Thank you
за
very much
откровенный разговор.
for
Международного дух народного единства.
International Club of the People's Unity. We want to say thank you and appreciate the work of Mr. Larry, that he found possibility and time to come to Moscow, not to be afraid of propaganda and fear, to see beautiful Russian cities, Russians, and the main point for us is honestly discuss the questions that take place now in the world, including open up for us how Americans think. Simple American. We're not talking about politicians, because we see the people in the White House. For us Russians, it's important in a framework of this people's unity to hear the words of regular Americans, what they think about, what they're going to, what kind of thoughts they have. We hope to see you again. It's definitely not the last meeting, and you would be our guest forever.
Well, thank you so much. I think it's important the work that the International Unity Club is doing to promote dialogue. Communication between both nations is critical. I hope that President Trump continues to communicate with President Putin, but as well as communicate that he listens and understands. So, thank you again, my friend.
Спасибо.
Yeah,
Thank you.
спасибо.